guys? The Super Review Show here. This is our very first Trekkies episode of the. We're launching a new show called Trekkies, and here's the introduction episode. What we have is, well, the introduction. What we will talk about. Primarily, we're going to talk about we will reference the original series, Next Generation. The movies that went along with it, and occasionally we'll mention Voyager. Or Deep Space Nine, or even Enterprise, regarding what the future holds for the Star Trek franchise moving forward, and what we're going to reflect on in the past. So that's what we're going to talk about. What we're going to primarily cover, though, is the new rebooted franchise, the J.J. Abrams reboot franchise, where J.J. Abrams basically took Star Trek and made it a more popular thing than it was. This year's 2015. Back in 2008, it was a dead franchise. There was no Star Trek. Everything was dying. Like the franchise was doing this quite a bit. The TV shows were bombing. Enterprise didn't stay in the air that long at all because compared to the other shows. Look, the last two Next Generation movies were pretty bad. So stuff like that. But we're going to cover the new stuff like Star Trek 2009 and Star Trek Into Darkness. Star Trek Beyond, and anything moving forward after that. If they want to do a new TV series, what are the comic books going to hold for the franchise? Stuff like that. We're going to cover other media as well. We're going to cover the comic books being published by IDW Publishing, which I love. I've read one of them, and I love every bit of it so far. I'll get into that in this episode, too, and then I'll launch further episodes like that, too. We're also going to talk about TV shows, too. Maybe could there be a new TV show in the works, because apparently that fan said the fan pitched a new show to Paramount, and they said, okay, well, we'll see what we can do about it, and they're working on that. So who knows if there's a new Star Trek TV show in development or not, but who knows. Not only that, and then we're going to wrap up everything for the day. But also, in the middle here, we're also going to talk about where the franchise could go next. Like, what are we looking for? Like, what sort of, what story elements could we use? What characters from past stuff could we use? Or could we use a brand new villain? Who knows? So sit tight. Trekkies is going to start right now. And here we are, guys. Trekkies. The first ever Star Trek only show here on the Super Review Show. Here's what I want to get into. The first thing I want to cover is the comic books. What the Star Trek comic books have been telling so far. And for those who don't know, that you're saying, wait, there's Star Trek comic books? What? Turns out they've been around since the 70s, folks. Ever since the original series, actually. The original series it wasn't Marvel or DC, it was just its own, I think it was Gold Key Comics, I believe. Now, IDW Publishing owns the Star Trek license to publish comic books now. But back then, you had Gold Key, Marvel and DC took their share publishing Star Trek books. List goes on and on. You can actually buy those older books under IDW's Star Trek Classics books. So a little plug for that. But the point the Star Trek books comic books I want to cover first is the Star Trek ongoing comic book. It's been going on for about 3 or 4 years now, where the first volume takes place after the 2009 film. So we already have our cast. We're moving forward. We go on from there. The 2009 film left off, and the comic books picked up right after that. So you had I believe 4 volumes, and these volumes included things like that's later. Those 4 volumes of Star Trek comic books covered original series scripts that never made it on air. So that covers like Gary Mitchell could be getting power and how Kirk has to kill him, and stuff like that, where they took old scripts, adapted them to a comic book, and made them part of to fill the gaps between 2009 Into Darkness and Into Darkness to Beyond. It'll fill the gaps. That's what I'm saying. What these books do. And not only that, but these books are actually really, really fun to read. Because it's not just the story points and the characters and stuff, but it's also where they go, what happens during this. But the first 2 or 3 volumes, they cover all they do is cover the what happens like right after Darkness, how the Federation is setting up other bases on other planets and stuff, other stations, things of that nature, how the Enterprise is doing things, stuff like that. And then you get to volume 4, I believe, is the ending of that, and then 5 is the prelude to Star Trek Into Darkness. And then what happens? Star Trek Into Darkness happens. And then after that you have volume 6 through 9. Now 9, obviously there's going to be more until Beyond comes out. But the stuff between that happens after Darkness and before Beyond, after Darkness and before Beyond, some pretty interesting stuff happens to the characters. Like Kirk and Spock have to deal with actually the whole Enterprise. This is what I read. The Enterprise is caught in the middle of a Romulan and Klingon war. Yes, a Klingon and Romulan war, and the Enterprise is caught in the middle of it. So they had to get out of that one. I'm not going to tell you. Spoiler. That story point is a spoiler, but I'm not going to tell you how it ends, though. Then also, I believe was Volume 9. Volume 9 has a start. Volume 9 introduces the character Q. From the Next Generation in the new TV, in the new rebooted franchise within the comic books. Now, Q fools them a little bit. He does some stuff, and then obviously they find a way out. I'm not going to tell you that, but you'll have to read it on your own. By the way, all these are available now. Volumes 1 through 9 are available now to buy in graphic novel form or in comic book form. I believe they're on issue 47 right now. I could be wrong about that. But point being these comic books fill the gaps between the movies, in between the movies. So 2009, comic books, Into Darkness, comic books, Beyond, and so on and so forth. They also have other comic books as well, like Next Generation, continuing stories. Continuing stories of Deep Space Nine, continuing stories of Voyager. Basically, continuing stories of all these other characters that have on the Enterprise and stuff like that. But it's different. It's more progressing stories with those same characters, with the same actors playing those characters, stuff like that. They have more Next Generation stuff than Voyager and Deep Space Nine. Sorry if you're a Deep Space Nine fan or a Voyager fan. I'm sorry, but that's the way it is. Yeah. So and the cool thing is, I was mentioning those Gold Key comic books earlier. They took IDW. This is one of the brilliant things that they do. They take the old comic books from like Gold Key or the original Marvel or DC Star Trek books. And not just for Star Trek, too, for other titles as well. And they take them and they make them more, and they reprint them. That way, the current comic book audience can buy them. And anyone who's a fan of Star Trek wants to see more, there you go. Their second series of the Gold Key stuff, I believe, just happened. Anyways, I mean, I could be wrong with that, but that's a side discussion. So yeah, that would wrap up the comic book section. Now let's get into something else. Let's get into the TV shows for a little bit. We all know this. Star Trek was a TV show, became a movie, and then you had a TV series after that. Then you had another TV series. So you had original series, Next Generation, Voyager, Deep Space Nine, and Enterprise. Yes, that's a lot of television, but still, over the 40 or 50 years, who knows? I mean, there has been a lot. Also, I want to get into something that I think a lot of Star Trek fans may not know about. Before Star Trek the Motion Picture in 1979, in the early 70s, maybe mid-70s, there was a Star Trek TV show going to come out. It was going to come out, and it was going to be called Star Trek Phase 2, and they had built a new set of the Enterprise. They had all these scripts ready. They had costumes ready. They were going to bring back all the cast. And it was going to be like a part 2 to the original series. And then what happened? In May of 1977, Star Wars comes out. And it changes everything at Paramount, saying, you know what? And I forget the guy's name, but what he said was, scrap everything you have regarding this new Phase 2 TV series. We're going to make it a feature film. So then that's why Star Trek the Motion Picture was named Star Trek the Motion Picture, and it's a direct relation. There's no allusion to it. That was fact. That's the reason why Star Trek the Motion Picture happened. I'm going to be honest with you, Star Trek the Motion Picture was a little bad. It was very slow, in my opinion. All film's subjective here. But, it was a little boring, a lot of points. Even though the whole movie was kind of boring. It was a very slow-paced movie, very slow-paced. I fell asleep, I think, halfway watching it. Anyways, but then what happened 3 years later? Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan comes out. How awesome is that? One of the best, in my opinion, one of the best sequels ever made. And then you had Star Trek 3, which was Search for Spock, which was fun. You had Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home, which was really, really, really fun. And then you had Star Trek 5, which was a crap in the bed. My opinion, this is just my opinion. Then you had Star Trek 6, which was the director of Star Trek 2 did it. That was just a guarantee that it was going to be good. Then you had the Next Generation movies, which was, I believe it was Generations, First Contact, Insurrection, and Nemesis. I think that's it. And they all were pretty bad. I started watching Star Trek Generations, and I couldn't even finish it. There's no slug to the Next Generation TV show, but the movies were a little. So I don't mean to be mean, but that's just the way it is, in my opinion. So you have that. Then you reach Star Trek 2009, which was primarily what the show will talk about. Is a lot just, like they had to reboot the franchise. They had to start everything over, but they had to make it fresh. And not only that, J.J. Abrams did something very clever with this. He took time travel, the element of time travel in the Star Trek universe, and he made them go back in time and rewrite history, saying the entire Star Trek history has now been altered. This new franchise is what the reality is. It's the first time it's been done. And I like to call it a time travel reset, which is where a plot point happens where you go back in time and you rewrite history, fixing continuity errors as one thing, and making it a good movie at the same time. That's hard, and JJ did it. He made Star Trek 2009, which was a brilliant film. And then came Star Trek Into Darkness, and I'm one of the people that loved it. I'm not going to lie. I really loved Star Trek Into Darkness. I know everyone's like, oh my god, it's horrible. It should be called Star Trek, stupid, what. Point being, it's a really fun film. Put your prejudice aside and get over the fact that the wrong guy screams Khan. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be mean to you. I'm not being mean, but I'm just stating my opinion. Don't get all sappy. I mean, it's a good movie. Okay, it's a giant hit with the regular audience. I know the Star Trek audience is a little niche right now about it, but But point being that it's a fun movie. Get over it. Now what we're going to get into in a little bit here is Beyond, Star Trek Beyond. I'm going to get into all this. So basically what I'm going to cover right here is the history from the moment JJ left up until now. So that was about 2 years ago when JJ left. So I'm going to get into the general details. I'm not going to get into every detail. So here we go. J.J. Abrams is announced to direct Star Wars Episode 7, declining him from directing Star Trek 3, Beyond. Then you have Roberto Orci, who wrote the script, and then he signs on to direct. He's never directed a feature film ever before, so he then backs out. He doesn't like the way it's going. He wants that to stay in the more classic Trek world, stuff like that. And then you have Simon Pegg come out and say the movie was the original script was too Star Trek-y. Let me just go off on that for a sec. You're making a movie called Star Trek. The least you could do is make a movie that has the Star Trek theme to it, or the character, the theme or the tone of Star Trek in there. You don't have to. Anyways, Simon Pegg rewrote the script with another writer, and I wonder how much of Roberto Orci's stuff is in there. And because honestly, I love the first two. I'm trying to figure out what's going on with the third one here. They got the Fast and Furious director Justin Lin to direct it. What he did was he turned Fast and Furious from an unbearably horrible franchise with 1, 2, and 3, and then 4 came out. Yeah, that was fun. 5 came out, better. 6 came out, great. I haven't seen any Fast and Furious movies, but I've read the reviews. I've read the critic reviews, and he turned a dead franchise into a goldmine franchise. So he didn't direct the 7th one, but that's okay. So they brought an action director to go on to Star Trek. What's going on here? And after that, they also the actors wanted raises. Zachary Quinto and Chris Pine said, "You know what? We deserve more than this. We're getting like $2 million for this. Let's get $5 million, so they each get $5 million. But Paramount was smart. They said, look, you want $5 million for Star Trek Beyond? We're sign on for a 4th film, and then we'll get back to you on that. And I said, okay, sure. Got their pay raise, signed on for Star Trek 4. So Star Trek 4 has been announced. Nothing's been official on it except the fact that it's now on the table, considering the 2 are signed on. That doesn't mean the movie's going to happen, which it probably will. But that's what I'm saying. So, and that was most recently. And then they just recently got one of the Raid actors from the movie The Raid into Star Trek Beyond as a I guess he's going to be like a member of the Enterprise or whatever. I don't know. So that's going to wrap up where JJ left off and where we are now. So there we go. One of the things I also want to really quickly get into before we sign off here is the fact that at the end of Star Trek Into Darkness, Khan has been put in that tube, and they're embarking on their 5-year mission to explore strange new worlds. So does Beyond take place 2 years after that, in the middle, like 2 years in the middle, or 4 years? I don't know where it's going to take place, but wherever it takes place, it better not be where they're just starting off their 5-year mission. I think they should be at least 2 years into their 5-year mission, and then we'll pick up from there. Idris Idris Elba's a bad guy on the Enterprise. Who knows? Because he also is cast in Star Trek Beyond. So I think that's the sum of Star Trek 3 right there. Obviously, we got to wait to see the movie on July 8th, 2016. But yeah. Now before we sign off here on Trekkies, I want to really just get your quick opinion on this, where the franchise could go next. Because my theory is that Idris Elba could be playing Q, and we're going to have a different villain in the 4th one. So what I think in the 4th one, you're going to have a different villain too. So we had Nero, Khan, and then we could have Q. We don't know who the villain is yet, but point being, we'll find out sooner or later when we go see the movie too. I wonder though. I'm really starting to wonder what the villain is. Who is it going to be? Which character? Because that would be a really interesting thing to figure out. Jump in the comment section. Speculate down below about what character do you want in Star Trek Beyond? Because that'd be, if you could speculate a few more names than me, that'd be great. Otherwise, for this first episode of Trekkies, for the Super Review Show, live long and prosper.